Good evening, and pull your chair a little closer to the fire, because this is Campfire Stories, and tonight I have a true one, or true enough. This one is fiction mostly, but they wrote it down in the old books, so make of that what you will. They call it the Baldoon Mystery.
True enough. That is the phrase folks reach for right before they tell you a whopper.
Fair. But listen. Back in the 1830s, down in the far southwest of this province, near a town called Wallaceburg, there was a little Scottish settlement called Baldoon. Flat marsh country, wet and grey, nothing at all like our granite ridges up here. And on a farm there lived a man named John MacDonald, with his wife and children.
Scottish settlers on a marsh in the 1830s. So far, the scariest thing in this tale is the mosquitoes.
Give it a minute. The story goes that the trouble started small. Stones, plain river stones, came flying through the windows of the MacDonald house. Not one or two of them either. Handfuls night after night, glass shattering, and never a living soul out in the dark to throw them.
Children. It is always children with a good throwing arm and nothing better to do.
That is exactly what John MacDonald thought too. So the men kept watch. They stood at the windows with lanterns burning, and still the stones came sailing in out of empty fields, and some of them were wet, as though they had come straight up out of the river.
Wet stones. All right, I will admit that is a colder detail than I was hoping for.
And then it grew worse. Things inside the house began to move on their own. A pot would slide off its shelf. A heavy flat iron would walk clean across the table while the whole family sat and watched it go. And the fires, Carol. The fires are the part that stayed with me.
Of course there are fires. In these stories, there's always a fire.
The story goes the house caught fire on its own, and not just the once. Over and over. A flame would bloom up in the curtains with no lamp anywhere near, and they would beat it out, and another would flare across the room behind them. They say the family kept buckets of water in every corner and barely slept, just waiting on the next one.
That is not a ghost, Marty. That is a chimney with bad flashing. I have watched a dry old farmhouse go up from one spark in the wall.
Maybe so. But then a loaded gun that hung on the wall went off by itself, with no hand upon it, and after that the neighbors stopped explaining it away. And there was the animal. People swore they saw a strange creature about the place, a long-eared black dog, or something shaped like a dog, bobbing along low to the ground, and gone the moment you looked straight at it.
A long-eared black thing that bobs low to the ground. Marty, that is a rabbit. You are trying to frighten me with a rabbit.
You laugh. The settlers did not. In those days, in a lonely place like that, folks went looking for a reason, and they found one. There was a woman living nearby, a neighbor the MacDonalds had crossed in a bitter quarrel over a strip of land. And the whispered word for her, in that settlement, was witch.
Ah, and there it is. Somebody wins a land dispute, and somebody becomes a witch. That is the oldest story in the whole book.
It is, and that is the ugly heart of it. I will grant you that much. But the tale does not stop there. They say the family went to a seer, a young man said to see what other eyes could not, and he told them how it would end. The thing tormenting them, he said, would show itself as a black dog, though some tell it as a black bird, and only one thing on this earth could touch it. A bullet cast of pure silver.
Melt down grandmother's good spoon and shoot the family pet. This is a horror story about property lines.
So the story goes, they cast the silver, and when the black creature came bobbing across the field one last time, John MacDonald raised the gun and fired. And they say that in the very moment the silver struck off in her own house, the old woman fell, wounded in the very same spot, and from that night forward the stones stopped, the fires died, and the McDonald farm went quiet.
Quiet. Sure it did. And I would bet not one of them ever went to check on the poor woman they had just decided to blame.
That is the thing, Carol. The old books tell you the haunting ended. They do not tell you what became of her. And here is the part that keeps me up. Baldoon is still down there on the map. And every so often the folks out by that old marsh will tell you that on a wet gray night, you can still hear something small and hard, tapping at the glass.